Simplicity is often underappreciated. Too many times people try to overcomplicate something that is already working just fine. You don't always need a supercharged laser beam or a repurposed mining laser. Sometimes you just need a metal tube and a high-grade explosive. The engineer certainly has a lot of really high-tech and interesting toys that he can play with. They can seem very sci-fi and futuristic looking, but one thing that some people seem to forget about is where the engineer started. Before the breach cutter and the shard diffractor, all he had was his trusty boom tube, the Deepcore personal grenade launcher. A weapon that is simple, but extremely effective and fun. So if you guys are ready, we're going to talk about the grenade launcher and the kinds of stats and overclocks it has access to see if it's the secondary weapon for your build. By the way, if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to never miss another upload.
Turrets and explosions. You've come to the right place, mate.
The Deepcore grenade launcher is a weapon that, on the surface, seems like a simple noob tube, but when you stop and consider what it's capable of, it becomes a lot more enticing. The Deepcore 40mm personal grenade launcher is the default secondary weapon for the engineer, so you don't have to wait at all to use this tool of destruction. The weapon fires explosive shells that are affected by gravity, so you do have to account for distance when shooting, but based on the projectile velocity stat, which can be changed using mods or overclocks, you can make it much more manageable. The weapon also has a high fear factor, where anything that survives the explosion might be left fleeing in terror. It has a good amount of armor breaking, although the armor breaking on this weapon doesn't work exactly as intended. That being that the armor breaking only applies to the projectile itself and not the blast radius. Other than that, the grenade launcher is a very versatile and simple weapon that has a lot of different ways that it can be outfitted to serve your needs. It can be a good crowd control tool or single target damage tool depending on the overclocks and built-in mods. Things like incendiary compound, concussive blast, and spiky grenades can all go a long way when you pair it with the proper overclocks.
Time for a cold one once this is done.
Now it's time to talk about those said overclocks for the grenade launcher. As of Season 4, the grenade launcher has 6 overclocks with the balanced split of 2 in each category. Next, as always, we'll go through them and talk about what they do and the kinds of ways you can utilize them.
Mushroom! 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 Mushroom!
So with that, let's start with the clean overclock, and the first one on the list is Clean Sweep. The description reads, increase the explosive radius and damage without any unwanted effects. So this overclock increases the area damage of the grenade slightly while also giving it a little bit of a bigger blast radius. To be specific, it gives you plus 10 to your area damage and increases the blast radius by 0.5 meters. So as far as clean overclocks go, this one is pretty standard issue. The extra area damage and radius can be very useful for giving you a little bit more effect on swarms. Leaning into the area damage with mods like AG Compound or larger payload are a good choice. Or you can also use the concussive blast to make this a mass stunning tool to assist your team. Since it's a clean overclock, you can use it in many different ways without hindering yourself. Next up for clean overclocks, we have Pack Rat, and honestly, I'm just going to skip over this one because it's the same thing as what we have seen before. It's the clean ammo overclock, it gives you plus 2 to your max ammo reserves, and it's a good choice to take no matter what. Alright, moving on. Moving on to the balanced overclocks, first we have the compact rounds. This one reads, smaller and lighter rounds means more rounds in the pocket at the cost of the explosion's effective radius and damage. So this one further increases your maximum ammo reserves at the cost of less area damage. Stat-wise, it gives you plus 5 to your max ammo reserves at the cost of minus 10 to your area damage and reduces your blast radius by 0.5 meters. So at least in terms of numbers, this one feels like a combination of a better version of Pack Rat and the inverse of Clean Sweep. This overclock gives you a lot more ammo to work with, which can be incredibly useful in many different ways. The way I see it, this overclock can be used in 2 different setups. You either take advantage of the extra ammo and use mods like the AG Compound in Tier 1 or the larger payload in Tier 2 to compensate for the lost area damage, or you lean into the launcher as a more single target weapon instead and just go all in with the extra ammo mods and things like spiky grenades or concussive blast. Ultimately, while not my typical go-to with the grenade launcher, it definitely does have some uses and it allows for some very flexible build options if you do want to use it. The next balanced overclock we have is one of the grenade launcher's most interesting, with the RJ250 Compound. This one reads, use explosions to launch yourself and your teammates into the air. So this one not only gives you yet even more ammo, but it also gives you the incredibly cool and fun ability to perform some fun maneuvers using the grenade launcher. Going through the numbers, it gives plus 6 to your max ammo reserves, increases your reload speed by 0.6 seconds, and gives you the RJ250 buff. RJ standing for rocket jump. All of this is countered by minus 35 to your area damage. So basically, the buff this overclock gives you lets you perform a blast jump using the launcher straight out of Team Fortress 2. It can let you get some really nice mobility and move around the caves a lot better. It's a little tricky to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, which I still haven't quite done yet, you'll be able to fly around the caves almost as effectively as the Scout. Outside of that fun little trick, however, it gives you a lot of ammo and less area damage. So if you still want to use it effectively for damage, then you definitely want to take a lot of the area damage mods we've talked about before, like Fragmentary Shell, AG Compound, and Larger Payload. Any of those will help you make this overclock work great as both a great traversal tool and a strong crowd control weapon. Moving on to the unstable overclocks, the grenade launcher has probably some of the best in the game. First we have Fat Boy, and the description reads, "Big and deadly and dirty. Too bad plutonium is so heavy that you can only take a few rounds with you. And remember to take care with the fallout." So this overclock, which I don't know how it got past R&D, allows you to fire mini nukes from the launcher like a fat man straight out of the Fallout franchise, which do an insane amount of damage to anything and everything in its wake. Breaking it down, it quadruples your area damage and increases the blast radius by 1 meter. This is countered by reducing your max ammo by 6 and reducing the projectile velocity by 30%. So we'll have a much more pronounced travel arc. There are a few extra things to note about this particular overclock. After the explosion, it creates a large radiation field at the point of impact for 15 seconds that does damage over time to enemies and slightly less damage over time to players. So this overclock, simply put, is one of the most fun ones to use in the game. It's for when you want to look at a particular location and say, I don't want anything there to be alive anymore. Keeping up with the Team Fortress 2 theme, this thing is probably the demo man's wet dream. If you want to clear an area, then this is the tool for you. The only real issue with it, aside from making sure that you don't take out your teammates in the process, is that you have way less ammo than usual. Thankfully, since you don't need to worry about damage or blast radius, since it's already covered for you, you could essentially just go completely focused on ammo and utility, like stunning or velocity, and you not have to worry about anything else. Simply put, if you've always wanted to have a mini atomic bomb in your pocket, then you've come to the right place. The other unstable overclock option is Hyper Propellant. The description reads, "New super high velocity projectiles trade explosive range for raw damage in a tight area. The increased weight of the rounds also limits how many you can carry." So this one is basically the inverse of the Fat Boy. Instead of a super wide area nuke, we now have a very focused and accurate, almost railgun type weapon capable of doing incredibly wild single target damage. Going through the numbers, it gives you plus 385 to your direct damage and increases the projectile velocity by 350%, essentially making it fire in a straight line. This is countered by the blast radius being reduced by 2.1 and -2 to your max ammo reserves. Also, while a little bit more technical, it converts both the direct and area damage of the weapon into disintegrate damage. Basically, it just means that if an enemy dies from this damage type, they don't trigger any on-death effects like the exploders exploding or the Praetorians farting. So while the Fat Boy is very fun to use, this is probably my personal favorite to use just because it can be incredibly good at dealing with deleting big enemies. In the right conditions, this thing can delete Praetorians and take disgusting chunks out of dreadnoughts, or really any big boss enemy. Again, like the Fat Boy, you can pretty much go all the way with just increasing ammo with a few extra mods like Incendiary Compound and of course spiky grenades for even more direct damage. This is the choice for people who like to delete big tough threats without too much stress. The grenade launcher is one of the more satisfying secondaries in the game, and it has overclocks for pretty much any playstyle you could imagine. It can blow up the entire map, take out single targets, and essentially anything in between. If you guys want to see another secondary weapon covered, let me know down in the comments, or perhaps I've already covered it, so make sure you check out the playlist. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you found this video helpful and informative, let me know by hitting those like and subscribe buttons, and consider becoming a member today, as it helps me out a lot. Rocket Stone Miners, I'll see you in the next video.